The sky splits open with a deafening roar as two titanic forces collide. Lightning cracks the heavens, stars shudder in their courses, and the very fabric of reality trembles. This isn't some distant sci-fi battle or a futuristic war. No, this cataclysm was imagined thousands of years ago, etched into the myths of our ancestors. From the thunder god striking down serpentine chaos in Mesopotamian epics to the Norse warriors of Valhalla clashing in an endless twilight, ancient cultures across the world shared a hauntingly similar vision: cosmic battles between gods and monsters, order and chaos, light and darkness. These weren't just stories, they were humanity's first attempts to explain the terrifying grandeur of the universe, the violence of storms, the mystery of eclipses, and even the rise and fall of empires. But why did so many civilizations separated by oceans and centuries dream up these celestial wars with such startling parallels? What hidden truths about our ancestors' fears, hopes, and understanding of the cosmos lie buried in these myths? Tonight, we're embarking on a journey through 30 of history's most breathtaking cosmic battles, each one a window into the minds of those who gazed at the same stars we do and saw not just distant lights but epic struggles of gods and titans. From the Hindu Rigveda's descriptions of Indra slaying the drought demon Vritra with a thunderbolt, to the Egyptian tale of Ra's nightly voyage through the underworld, battling the serpent Apophis to ensure the sun would rise again, these stories are more than folklore. They're the DNA of human imagination, the blueprints of our earliest attempts to make sense of an overwhelming universe. And here's the most fascinating part: these myths didn't just vanish into history. They evolved, whispering their way into our religions, our art, even our modern blockbusters. The battles between Superman and Zod, the apocalyptic clashes in Marvel's Thor, these are echoes of the same cosmic wars our ancestors once told around campfires. So if you've ever felt a chill down your spine at the sight of a storm cloud or wondered why stories of gods and monsters still captivate us today, you're about to uncover the roots of something primordial. These 30 myths are waiting, each one a puzzle piece in the vast mosaic of human belief. The question is, are you ready to step into the arena of the gods? Long before the gods of Olympus or the legends of Valhalla took shape, one of the earliest and most influential cosmic battles was etched into clay tablets in ancient Mesopotamia. The Enuma Elish, a Babylonian epic written over 3,000 years ago, tells the story of Tiamat, the primordial goddess of saltwater chaos, and her explosive clash with Marduk, the storm god of order. Picture this: a time before earth or sky, when the universe was nothing but swirling, untamed waters. From this endless ocean rose Tiamat, a dragon-like force of nature, her body coiled with the raw energy of creation itself. Alongside her was Apsu, the freshwater abyss, and together they birthed the first generations of gods. But as these younger deities grew louder and more unruly, Apsu plotted to destroy them. What happens next is a masterclass in divine rebellion. The god slays Apsu, enraging Tiamat. She morphs into a monstrous serpent, birthing an army of demons to avenge her fallen mate. The heavens tremble as she arms her champion, the ferocious Kingu, with the tablets of destiny, objects that hold the power to control the universe itself. None of the gods dare face her until Marduk rises, with 4 piercing eyes, a voice that commands storms, and a promise to save the cosmos. He agrees to fight, but only if the gods make him their supreme ruler. The battle that follows is nothing short of apocalyptic. Marduk rides his chariot of winds into the heart of chaos, his bow drawn, lightning crackling around him. When Tiamat opens her jaws to swallow him whole, he hurls winds into her belly, distending her until she's helpless, then drives an arrow straight through her heart. But the real twist: Marduk doesn't just defeat her, he dismantles her corpse, transforming her body into the very fabric of the world. Her ribs become the vault of the sky, Her weeping eyes give birth to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and from Kingu's blood, humanity is molded to serve the gods. This wasn't just a thrilling myth, it was Mesopotamia's answer to the mysteries of existence. The Enuma Elish explained everything from the origins of storms to why humans labored under divine rule. And its influence stretched far beyond Babylon. You can see echoes of Tiamat in the Bible's Leviathan, in Greek tales of Zeus battling Typhon, even in modern fantasies where heroes slay dragons to forge new worlds. It's a story that asks, does order always require violence? Can creation only rise from destruction? The Mesopotamians thought so, and their answers still ripple through time. Now we turn to the banks of the Nile, where darkness wasn't just the absence of light. It was a living, breathing enemy. Every night, the sun god Ra faced his greatest threat, Apep, the serpent of chaos, a creature so vast his coils could crush the universe. Picture Ra's solar bark, a glowing ship carrying the sun through the treacherous underworld known as the duat. The air hums with danger as shadows twist into monstrous shapes and the river turns to fire. Then comes the Hiss Apep rising from the abyss, a mile-long nightmare with scales like blackened metal, jaws wide enough to swallow stars. This wasn't just a myth, it was a battle the Egyptians believed happened every single night. If Ra lost, the sun would never rise again, but here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. The priests of Egypt didn't just pray for Ra's victory, they fought alongside him. Temple walls from Luxor to Abydos show priests performing the breaking of Apep ritual, stabbing wax effigies of the serpent, reciting spells so potent they were said to wound the real Apep in the duat. They burned papyrus inscribed with his name, salted the earth where his name was spoken, all to weaken the serpent before Ra's arrival. Imagine the stakes: one missed ritual, one misspelled incantation, and chaos might win. The battle itself was a masterclass in symbolic warfare. Ra's crew included the god Set, whose raw violence could match Apep's fury, and the wise goddess Isis, whose magic could heal Ra's wounds. Even the dead played a role. Souls in the duat would shout curses at Apep, their voices like weapons. When Ra finally struck the killing blow, Apep didn't die permanently. He retreated only to return the next night. This endless cycle wasn't just about good versus evil, it reflected the Nile's floods, the desert's encroachment, even the pharaoh's duty to maintain cosmic balance. Apep's legacy slithers through history. The Greeks saw him in their own chaos monster, Typhos. Modern fantasy writers borrow his eternal resilience for villains who never stayed dead. But perhaps his greatest impact was on Egyptian society itself. By making every citizen from pharaohs to farmers part of Ra's victory through rituals and morality, the myth didn't just explain the world. It gave them power to shape it. The air crackles with the scent of ozone as the heavens themselves prepare to rupture. In ancient Greece, the cosmos wasn't ruled by the familiar gods of Olympus, not yet. Before Zeus could wield his thunderbolt, before Hera could take her throne, an older, more brutal order reigned supreme, the Titans. These primordial beings, children of earth and sky, held dominion over a world still raw with chaos. But their reign would end in fire and fury, in a conflict so earth-shattering the Greeks called it the Titanomachy, the War of the Titans. This wasn't just a squabble among immortals, it was a revolution, a 10-year cataclysm that reshaped the universe. The spark, a prophecy that the Titan king Cronus would be overthrown by his own child. Paranoid, he swallowed each of his newborn children whole, until his wife Re tricked him, hiding their youngest son, Zeus, in a cave on Crete. Raised in secret, Zeus returned as a storm-given flesh, forcing Cronus to disgorge his siblings, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Together, they became the Olympians, and their rebellion against the Titans began. What followed was warfare on a scale beyond mortal comprehension. The Titans, led by the towering Atlas, had strength and numbers, but the Olympians had cunning and the Cyclopes. These one-eyed forgers, freed from Tartarus by Zeus, crafted weapons that tipped the balance. Hades' helm of invisibility, Poseidon's earth-shaking trident, and most devastating of all, Zeus's thunderbolts, jagged forks of lightning capable of splitting mountains. The battleground everywhere, mountains became projectiles, seas boiled, and the sky itself groaned under the strain. The climax came at Mount Othrys, the Titan's stronghold. Zeus, channeling the fury of the storm, hurled bolt after bolt, while Hades slipped unseen into enemy ranks, sowing terror. Poseidon's trident split the earth, swallowing Titan warriors. Finally, the Olympians cast the defeated Titans into Tartarus, an abyss so deep, an anvil would fall 9 days before striking bottom. There, guarded by the 100-handed hecatoncheires, they would remain, their rage echoing through the earth as earthquakes. But the Titanomachy wasn't just about victory, it was about legacy. Zeus's reign brought order, but also a warning. The Greeks saw in this war the cyclical nature of power, the fear of rebellion, even the cost of progress. And when later poets spoke of heroes like Hercules or Perseus, they walked in the shadow of this war, a reminder that even gods must fight for their place in the cosmos. The thunderbolt didn't just symbolize Zeus's might, it was the spark that forged the world as we know it. Midnight descends over the Viking world, but this is no ordinary darkness. This is the Fimbulwinter, a winter so brutal it lasts 3 years without respite. Wolves devour the sun and moon, plunging the earth into perpetual twilight. And from the icy depths of Niflheim, the ship Naglfar, built from the fingernails of the dead, creaks toward the battlefield. This is Ragnarök, the Norse apocalypse, where gods and monsters meet in a final, earth-shattering duel. Unlike other myths where order triumphs, Ragnarök embraces destruction as a necessary prelude to rebirth, a cycle as relentless as the turning seasons. At the heart of this cataclysm stand 2 fated duels. Odin, the All-Father, cloaked in wisdom and ravens, faces Fenrir, the monstrous wolf whose jaws stretch from earth to sky. Bound centuries earlier by enchanted chains, Fenrir's rage has festered, and now freed, he embodies chaos unchained. Meanwhile, Thor, the thunder god, squares off against Jörmungandr, the world serpent, a creature so vast it circles the earth, biting its own tail. Their rivalry is ancient. Thor once tried to lift the serpent disguised as a cat and later poisoned it in a fishing trip gone awry. Now their battle shakes the foundations of Yggdrasil, the world tree, as lightning clashes with venom. But Ragnarök isn't just about the gods' fall. The fire giant Surtur sets the cosmos ablaze, his flaming sword carving the sky. Heimdall, the watchman, blows his horn Gjallarhorn, summoning all to the field. Even the dead rise from Hell's realm to join the fray. In the end, Fenrir swallows Odin whole, only for Odin's son Vidar to tear the beast apart. Thor slays Jörmungandr but staggers 9 steps before collapsing, poisoned by the serpent's venom. The earth sinks into the sea, and Surtur's flames consume all. Yet Norse cosmology doesn't end in ashes. From the waters, a new world emerges, greener, fresher, where the surviving gods and 2 human survivors, Lif and Lifthrasir, begin anew. The cycle mirrors the Viking view of existence, not a linear path, but an eternal wheel of destruction and renewal. Even their sagas echoed this theme. Ships burned to light funerals, ensuring the dead could sail into the next life. Ragnarök's legacy thrives in modern storytelling, from the doom-laden prophecies in Game of Thrones to the apocalyptic stakes of superhero films. It's a reminder that sometimes to create you must first destroy. Lightning splits the sky over ancient India, not as a force of nature, but as the divine weapon Vajra, clutched in the fist of Indra, king of the gods. Below him coils Vritra, a serpent so colossal his body blocks the world's rivers, his scales shimmering with the stolen waters of creation. This is no ordinary drought demon. Vritra is an Asura, a being of chaos and darkness, representing the primal forces that seek to unravel order. The Rigveda paints this battle in seismic strokes. Indra, fueled by sacred Soma drink, hurls his thunderbolt, shattering Vritra's coils, releasing the waters to nourish the earth. But hidden beneath this clash lies a deeper truth. The Hindu cosmos thrives on tension, a delicate dance between Devas and Asuras that keeps the universe in balance. The churning of the ocean of milk reveals this duality in spectacular fashion. Picture gods and demons working together for once to extract Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Using Mount Mandara as a churning rod and the serpent Vasuki as a rope, they pull in opposing directions, creating cosmic friction. The ocean foams with treasures, the wish-fulfilling cow Kamadhenu, the moon god Chandra, even the poison Halahala that threatens to consume the world until Shiva swallows it to save creation. Finally, Amrita rises and the fragile alliance shatters. The Asuras grab the nectar, but Vishnu transforms into Mohini, a dazzling enchantress, tricking them into surrendering it. The Devas drink, securing their supremacy for now. This myth isn't just about good defeating evil. The Asuras aren't mere villains, they're necessary counterparts pushing the Devas to evolve. Indra's victories are often followed by humility. His throne shakes when ascetics gain too much power, reminding him even gods aren't infallible. The cosmic balance mirrors Hindu philosophy's embrace of opposites. Light needs shadow, creation requires destruction. Modern retellings, from comic books to TV epics, still wrestle with this nuance because the battle between Devas and Asuras isn't just ancient lore. It's a mirror to our own struggles between ambition and ethics, progress and preservation. The thunderbolt that felled Vritra didn't just bring rain. It sparked a question that echoes through time. Can harmony exist without conflict? The desert wind howls across the Persian plateau, carrying whispers of an ancient prophecy, one that foretells the end of all things, but not before a final, cataclysmic war between the twin forces of creation itself. In the Zoroastrian tradition, the universe is a battlefield where Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom and Light, wages an eternal campaign against Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit of chaos and falsehood. This wasn't just a myth, it was the foundation of a worldview that shaped empires. Picture a cosmos divided not by petty squabbles among gods, but by a fundamental duality. Ahura Mazda creates order, truth, and life. His very presence kindles the sacred flame that burns in Zoroastrian temples. Opposite him stands Angra Mainyu, the lie incarnate, who twists creation with disease, decay, and deceit. Their struggle isn't confined to some distant realm. It plays out in every human choice between righteousness and corruption. Farmers tending crops honor Ahura Mazda. Bandits who pillage, they serve Angra Mainyu's shadow. But here's where Zoroastrianism unveils its revolutionary twist. This war has an expiration date. The Avestan texts speak of Frashokrati, a fiery cosmic renovation where the world will be purified. The earth itself will convulse as molten metal flows in a river of judgment. The righteous will wade through unharmed, their souls gleaming like refined gold, while the wicked will burn away their impurities. A final savior, the Saoshyant, will rise to lead Ahura Mazda's forces in a battle so decisive, it will banish Angra Mainyu forever. The sun will freeze in the sky, time will stop, and existence will be remade perfect, immortal, free from darkness. This vision electrified ancient Persia. Kings like Cyrus the Great saw themselves as Ahura Mazda's allies, their empire's bulwarks against chaos. Rituals weren't just prayers, they were acts of cosmic maintenance, staving off Angra Mainyu's influence. Even now, echoes of this duality ripple through history. Manichaeism's light-dark struggle, Tolkien's Morgoth, even modern dystopias where heroes fight systems of oppression. The brilliance of Zoroastrianism wasn't just its moral clarity, but its ultimate promise. No matter how long the night, dawn is written into the fabric of reality. The mist rolls thick over the emerald hills of ancient Ireland. But this is no ordinary fog, it's the breath of the Fomorians, a race of monstrous giants who rule the land with fists of iron and hearts of storm. With one eye glaring like a blood-red moon and limbs twisted like gnarled oak roots, they demand cruel tribute, 2/3 of the harvest, the firstborn of every family, even the very milk of the cows. The people groan under their yoke until the sea itself seems to shudder, and from its waves rise the Tuatha De Danann, the people of the goddess Danu. They arrive in a cloak of magic, their ships burning with otherworldly flames, their weapons singing with destiny. This isn't just a clash of armies, it's a war of worldviews. The Fomorians embody chaos, their very presence twisting the land into blight and barrenness. Their king, Balor of the Poisoned Eye, carries a lidless orb that kills whatever it gazes upon, a weapon so terrible his own eyelid must be held open by hooks. Opposing them stand the Tuatha De, masters of druidic arts who bring with them 4 legendary treasures: the Sword of Nuada, which cannot be escaped once drawn, the Spear of Lug, thirsty for battle, the Stone of Fal, which roars under the true king, and the Cauldron of Dagda, which can feed armies without ever emptying. The first battle of Mag Tuaid ends in tragedy. Nuada, the Tuatha De's king, loses his arm to the Fomorian champion Esreng, forcing him to step down, for no blemished ruler may reign. But a new hero emerges, Lug Lamfoda, the many-skilled, a storm of talent who can outfight, outwit, and outshine any foe. When the Fomorians demand submission, Lug shatters their arrogance with a game of strategy, then rallies the Tuatha De for the second battle of Mag Tuaid. The field becomes a canvas of carnage. Dagda wields his club so massive it leaves trenches in the earth, while the Morrigan, goddess of war, shrieks prophecies that unravel enemy morale. Lug's final duel with Balor is myth-making at its most cinematic. Using a slingstone, a weapon of the underdog, he fires it straight into Balor's deadly eye, the force so great it blasts through the giant's skull and obliterates the Fomorian ranks behind him. The land heaves a sigh as the tyranny breaks, but the Tuatha De's victory isn't without cost. Their king Nuada falls, and the Morrigan washes the corpses while howling a warning: power, no matter how noble, is fleeting. What makes this myth unforgettable isn't just its spectacle, but its subtext. The Fomorians aren't mere monsters. They're the old order, the wild, untamed forces the Tuatha De must civilize or exploit, depending on who tells the tale. Later Christian scribes would reframe them as demonic invaders, but early Irish lore hints at something deeper, a cycle of conquest and compromise where even victors absorb the traits of the vanquished. You can trace this tension through history, from Viking settlements in Ireland to the blending of pagan and Christian rites, the Tuatha De's magic weapons. They're echoes of real Bronze Age prestige items mythologized into destiny, and Lug's triumph, a reminder that tyranny, no matter how entrenched, can be toppled by skill, unity, and a well-aimed stone. The storm rages over Izumo, not with the gentle whisper of rain, but with the furious howl of a god scorned. Susanoo, the tempestuous brother of the sun goddess Amaterasu, has been cast out of the heavens for his reckless wrath, tearing through rice fields, defiling sacred halls, and hurling a flayed horse into his sister's weaving room. Now exiled to the mortal realm, he stumbles upon a scene of human despair, an elderly couple weeping as they prepare to sacrifice their 8th and final daughter to a monstrous serpent, Yamata Noa Rochi. This isn't just a beast, it's an incarnation of chaos, a hydra-like terror with 8 heads and 8 tails, its crimson eyes gleaming with hunger, its scales crusted with the moss of centuries. Each year it devours a maiden, and now the land itself trembles under its weight. But Susanoo, ever unpredictable, sees more than just a chance for redemption. He sees opportunity. With a grin as sharp as lightning, he strikes a bargain with the grieving parents, their daughter's life in exchange for Orochi's demise. Here's where the myth takes a cunning turn. Susanoo doesn't charge in with brute force. Instead, he transforms the girl into a comb, tucking her safely into his hair, then sets a trap worthy of a trickster god. He brews 8 vats of sake so potent the scent alone could intoxicate a mountain. When Orochi slithers into the clearing, drawn by the aroma, each head plunges greedily into the liquor, gulping until the serpent collapses in a stupor. Only then does Susanoo strike, his sword Totsuka note, Tsurugi flashing like a storm front, severing head after head until the river runs black with serpentine blood. But the real treasure lies in Orochi's fourth tale, where Susanoo's blade strikes something unyielding. Inside, he finds the sacred sword Kusanagi note Tsurugi, its edge shimmering with divine power. This blade, later gifted to Amaterasu as reconciliation, becomes one of Japan's 3 imperial regalia, symbols of the emperor's divine right to rule. Yet the myth doesn't end with a simple victory. Susanoo's actions ripple through Shinto tradition. The slaying of Orochi isn't just a hero's tale, it's a parable of purification. In Shinto rituals, sake is still offered to cleanse evil, and the annual Ohari ceremony invokes Susanoo's name to expel spiritual pollution. Even the landscape bears witness. The high river in Izumo is said to run red every autumn, a spectral reminder of Orochi's demise. What makes this battle timeless isn't just its drama, but its duality. Susanoo, the outcast, becomes a savior. The serpent's death yields a sacred relic. Chaos, once tamed, underpins order. Unlike Western dragon slayers who embody pure virtue, Susanoo is flawed, capable of destruction and grace in equal measure. Modern Japan still echoes this balance. Festivals blend raucous celebration with solemn ritual, and the imperial regalia remain shrouded in mystery, never fully displayed. The storm god's lesson endures. Sometimes it takes a force of nature to restore harmony. The heavens tremble as 2 gods circle each other in an eternal dance of creation and ruin. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, his scales shimmering with the hues of jade and quetzal birds, and Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, his obsidian-clad form reflecting every deception and desire. To the Aztecs, this wasn't just divine rivalry, it was the engine of existence itself, a cycle of destruction and rebirth encoded in their very calendar. Their battles weren't fought with mere weapons, but with the fabric of time, shaping the 5 suns, the 5 epochs of the cosmos, each ending in apocalypse and renewal. Picture the first sun, Nahui Oslotl, an era of giants ruled by Tezcatlipoca. For 1352-year cycles, the world thrived, until Quetzalcoatl, wielding a mighty staff, hurls his rival from the sky. Tezcatlipoca crashes into the waters, rising as a monstrous jaguar whose claws tear apart the earth, summoning a horde of celestial beasts to devour humanity. But this cataclysm isn't mere annihilation, it's transformation. The survivors become monkeys, clinging to trees as the world drowns in chaos. Then comes the second sun, Nahui Ehecatl, Quetzalcoatl's turn to rule. The wind god brings harmony, until Tezcatlipoca, ever the trickster, convinces the people to abandon their temples. Enraged, Quetzalcoatl unleashes hurricanes so fierce they rip the very air from mortal lungs, scattering the survivors as birds. The third son, Nahui Quiahuatl, belongs to the rain god Tlaloc, but when Tezcatlipoca steals his wife, the grief-stricken god withholds the rains, leaving the earth to burn under a hail of fire. The fourth son, Nahui Atl, is a watery epoch overseen by Chalchutlicue, the jade-skirted goddess of rivers, until Tezcatlipoca accuses her of false piety, and the heavens collapse in a flood so vast it takes 52 years to recede. Now we live under the fifth sun, Nahui Olan, the age of movement, a fragile balance struck after the gods gather at Teotihuacan to recreate the world. Nanahuatzin, a humble, pustule-covered god, leaps into the sacrificial fire to become the new sun, but he lacks the strength to move across the sky. The other gods must feed him their blood, and so begins the Aztec covenant. Humanity must sustain the sun through ritual, or the fifth sun too will fall. What makes this myth so extraordinary isn't just its scale, but its moral complexity. Tezcatlipoca isn't a villain, he's necessity. his deceptions test the gods, forcing evolution. Quetzalcoatl's gentleness isn't weakness. His self-sacrifice later, when he descends to Mictlan to retrieve the bones of humanity's ancestors, cements his role as civilization's architect. Their rivalry mirrors the duality in Aztec life: order and chaos, agriculture and warfare, the ball game's sacred court where players reenacted cosmic struggle. Even the Spanish conquest was interpreted through this lens. Some saw Cortés as Quetzalcoatl returning, others as Tezcatlipoca's ultimate trick. Modern echoes abound. The Five Suns resonate in dystopian tales of cyclical collapse, from climate fiction to superhero arcs where worlds must die to be reborn. But perhaps the most haunting legacy is the Aztec understanding of impermanence. Their pyramids weren't just temples, they were models of the cosmos, each staircase a countdown to the next era. When a priest raised a sacrificial knife, he wasn't just feeding the sun, he was holding the universe together, one heartbeat at a time. The horizon burns red as the sun races across Polynesian skies, not in its steady arc we know today, but in a frantic dash, scorching the earth and leaving crops withered, nets half-woven, and fishermen's hands blistered from chasing daylight. This was a time before balance, when the sun god sped selfishly through the heavens, granting no respite to mortals below. Enter Maui, the trickster demigod, his belt woven from the hair of his ancestors, his grin sharp with mischief and determination. His weapon, not a thunderbolt or a sword, but something far more personal, his grandmother's jawbone, a relic pulsing with ancestral power. This isn't just a battle against a celestial tyrant, it's a revolution of time itself, a myth explaining why the days stretch long enough for breadfruit to ripen and children to play in the waves. Maui's plan unfolds with the cunning of a master strategist. With help from his brothers, he braids ropes from coconut fibers strong enough, he claims, to lasso the greatest of fish. But when they reach the edge of the world where the sky dips low, Maui reveals his true target. As La streaks past, Maui hurls the ropes, snaring the sun's fiery limbs. The struggle that follows shakes the foundations of the earth. La roars, his heat melting the ropes one by one, until Maui raises his grandmother's jawbone, a weapon steeped in the mana of generations. With a strike that echoes across the ocean, he fractures the sun's radiance, forcing it to bargain. Yet this myth isn't just about brute force. Maui's victory hinges on wit and reciprocity. He doesn't seek to destroy La, but to renegotiate the rhythm of life. The agreement they forge, slower days, longer nights, becomes the heartbeat of Polynesian existence. Fishermen gain time to mend their nets, farmers watch taro roots swell in unhurried earth, and storytellers weave tales under stretched-out twilight. Even the jawbone carries layered meaning, not just a tool of violence but a bridge between generations, a reminder that the wisdom of elders can tame even the gods. But Maui's legacy doesn't end here. Across the Pacific, variations of this tale ripple through Hawaii, Tahiti, and Aotearoa. In some, he snares the sun in a net. In others, he singes its rays until it surrenders. The consistency, humanity's audacity to challenge the cosmos and win. Modern science confirms the myth's intuition. Earth's rotation has slowed over millennia, stretching days by fractions. While Maui didn't literally bind the sun, his story encodes an essential truth. Survival hinges on reshaping the world to meet our needs. When Polynesian navigators read the stars or Maori gardeners chant to the moon, they're heirs to Maui's defiance, proof that sometimes the greatest cosmic battles aren't fought with weapons, but with cleverness, persistence, and a grandmother's borrowed strength. The skies of Mesopotamia darken as the beating of colossal wings stirs a tempest. Anzu, the monstrous thunderbird, his feathers glinting like bronze, his screech splitting the silence of the divine realm. This isn't just a beast, he's a force of rebellion, a creature born from the primordial chaos that existed before gods ruled. And now, with cunning and brute strength, he seized the ultimate prize, the Tablet of Destinies, a sacred artifact holding the power to decree the fate of the universe itself. With it clutched in his talons, Anzu doesn't just challenge the gods, he upends the very order of creation. The ruler Enlil, guardian of the tablet, lies paralyzed, his divine authority crumbling like a sandstorm-eroded temple. The cosmos teeters on the brink of anarchy. Enter Ninurta, the god of war and thunderstorms, his spear crackling with divine energy. Unlike brute force heroes, Ninurta's strategy unfolds like a sacred hymn. First, he seeks wisdom. His mother, the earth goddess Ninhursag, reveals Anzu's weakness. The thunderbird's power wanes when his wings are stripped of their feathers, symbols of his stolen authority. Armed with this knowledge, Ninurta rallies the winds themselves as allies. The battle that follows is a masterclass in celestial warfare. Anzu hurls mountains like pebbles, his wings unleashing hurricanes, but Ninurta dances through the chaos, his spear striking not just flesh but destiny itself. When Anzu tries to invoke the tablet's power, Ninurta's winds tear the feathers from his wings, rendering the artifact inert. The final blow isn't just a physical strike, it's a restoration of cosmic balance. The tablet wrested back, its power returned to the rightful hands of the gods. But this myth isn't just about heroics. The Tablet of Destinies echoes in later traditions. Think of the Greek Moirai weaving fate, or the Norse Norns carving runes into Yggdrasil. Even modern fantasies like The Lord of the Rings borrow its theme, a single object holding the power to reshape reality. Yet Anzu's rebellion carries deeper layers. Some scholars see him as a symbol of usurped authority, a challenge to rigid hierarchies. After all, Ninurta doesn't hoard the tablet's power, he shares it, ensuring the gods rule collectively. This subtle shift mirrors Babylonian ideals of kingship, where rulers governed not by sheer might, but through wisdom and the consent of the divine assembly. Ninurta's triumph also reveals a paradox. The god of storms, often associated with destruction, becomes the agent of order. It's a reminder that chaos and stability aren't opposites, they're partners in an eternal dance. When thunderstorms watered Babylonian crops, they weren't just acts of violence, they were necessary upheavals, cleansing the land for new growth. Anzu's legend endures because it speaks to a universal tension. The fear of lost control and the courage required to reclaim it, not through domination but through unity and cunning. The Thunderbird's wings may have been clipped, but his lesson lingers. Even the mightiest orders can tremble, and sometimes it takes a storm to set things right. The storm clouds gather over the Slavic world, but this is no ordinary tempest, it's the clash of cosmic opposites, a duel between the sky and the underworld itself. High above the treetops rides Perun, the thunder god, his chariot drawn by goats, his axe crackling with divine lightning. Below, coiled in the roots of the world tree, lurks Veles, the serpentine god of waters, cattle, and the unseen depths. Their rivalry isn't just a myth, it's the heartbeat of Slavic cosmology, a cycle of conflict that explains everything from thunderstorms to the turning of the seasons. Picture Perun, his beard woven with bolts of lightning, his voice rolling like thunder across the heavens. He is order, justice, the unyielding force that strikes down oath breakers and evil spirits. Veles, meanwhile, slithers through rivers and marshlands, his scales glistening with stolen sunlight. A trickster who blurs boundaries, god of merchants yet lord of the dead, patron of cattle but master of chaos. When Veles steals Perun's sacred cattle or children, the thunder god's rage shakes the earth. Lightning splits oak trees sacred to Perun as he pursues Veles through the branches of the world tree, each strike a desperate attempt to reclaim what was taken. But here's where the myth deepens. Their battles aren't just destruction, they're transformation. In one tale, Veles transforms into a serpent, a bull, even a golden-horned stag to evade Perun's wrath. The chase weaves through all three realms, the skies, the mortal world, and the watery underworld where Veles rules. When Perun finally corners him, his lightning doesn't annihilate Veles, it drives him back underground, restoring balance. The Slavs saw this in their own lives. Summer's thunderstorms, Perun's triumph, gave way to autumn's rains, Veel's resurgence, a cycle ensuring fertility and renewal. Even the landscape bore witness. Caves and springs were Veel's domain, while hilltop shrines housed Perun's idols. What makes this duality so compelling is its refusal to paint either god as purely good or evil. Veel's isn't a devil, he's necessity. His thefts force action, his chaos sparks creation. Perun's lightning doesn't just punish, it purifies, clearing the way for new growth. This tension echoes in Slavic rituals. Farmers begged Perun for rain but left offerings for Veel's at boundary stones, acknowledging both forces were needed. Modern reinterpretations, from fantasy novels to video games, often miss this nuance, reducing the conflict to simple hero versus villain. But the truth is far richer. Like the oak and the serpent, sky and earth are locked in an eternal dance, each defining the other. When thunder rumbles in the distance, it's not just a storm. It's the echo of a bargain struck millennia ago. Without the serpent's cunning, the god's strength would have no purpose. Without the god's fury, the serpent's chaos would consume the world. Rivers boil over their banks, mountains crumble into the sea, and the very sky tilts precariously. This is the aftermath of Gong Gong's rage, a celestial catastrophe etched into Chinese legend. The water god, horned and scaled like a dragon, wasn't always a force of destruction. Once he served as a guardian of the waters, until a bitter feud with the fire god Zhurong ignited a rampage that nearly shattered the cosmos. Their battle wasn't just a clash of elements, it was a struggle for cosmic supremacy, fought atop the sacred mountain Baju, the pillar holding heaven aloft. When Zhurong's flames drove Gong Gong to desperation, the water god slammed his skull against the mountain with such force that the axis of the world snapped. The sky tore open at the northwest corner, sending stars tumbling into chaos, while the earth split in the southeast, unleashing torrents that drowned the land. Enter Nuwa, the serpent-tailed goddess of creation, her hands already stained with the clay of humanity's birth. Where other gods might have punished Gong Gong, Nuwa acted as both healer and architect. Gathering stones of 5 sacred colors, azure for the east, crimson for the south, white for the west, black for the north, and golden yellow for the center, she melted them in a celestial forge, patching the broken sky like an artisan mending pottery. Yet the heavens still sagged, so Nuwa slaughtered the giant turtle owl, using its 4 legs as new pillars to steady the corners of the world. She tamed floods with reeds burned to ash, their weight absorbing the waters, and slit the throat of a black dragon whose blood poisoned the rivers, purging the last of Gong Gong's chaos. What makes this myth resonate isn't just its spectacle, but its layers of meaning. The tilted sky explains why Chinese cosmology sees the northwest as the realm of the divine. Stars still drift downward there, remnants of the ancient rupture. The southeast lowlands mirror the Earth's wound, a nod to real geographic features like the flood-prone Yangtze Delta. Nuwa's repairs also encode a philosophy of balance. Her 5 colored stones mirror the Wu Xing elements, while the turtle's limbs symbolize the 4 directions anchoring the cosmos. Even Gong Gong's exile carries symbolism. His defeat didn't erase water's power, but confined it to manageable channels, much like the dikes and canals of early Chinese civilization. This tale echoes beyond China. The motif of a broken sky appears in Maori lore, where the god Tain holds up the heavens with trees, and in Greek myths where Atlas shoulders the celestial sphere. But Nuwa's solution is uniquely pragmatic. She doesn't restore perfection, but adapts to imperfection, a theme mirrored in Taoist acceptance of asymmetry. Modern retellings, from anime to climate fiction, often cast Nuwa as an ecological savior, her repairs a metaphor for environmental healing. Yet the original myth holds a darker truth: some fractures never fully close. The heavens still lean, the earth still dips, and humanity must navigate a world forever shaped by the aftershocks of divine rage. The jungle floor trembles as the lords of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld, laugh through skull-like masks, their bony fingers rattling like dried gourds. They've played this game before, luring mortals into their shadowy realm with the promise of glory, only to crush them in the deadly ball court where the stakes aren't points but souls. But tonight's challengers are different. The hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, sons of a murdered ball-player god, their sandals still dusty from the world above. This isn't just a match, it's a cosmic reckoning, a battle of wits and wills that will reshape the heavens themselves. The Popol Vuh, the sacred text of the Kayich Maya, paints Xibalba as a place of traps and twisted rules. The Lords of Death, 12 in all, with names like Pus Master and Scab Stripper, specialize in psychological torment. First, they sent the twins into the Dark House, a chamber swarming with lethal bats. Then the Razor House, where blades leaped from the walls. Each trial was designed to break them, but the twins turned their enemies' tricks against them. When the lords offered them a bench to sit, they sensed the heat. It was a slab of burning stone. Instead of sitting, they claimed it was too cold, tricking the lords into sitting first. Their screams filled Xibalba as their flesh seared. The ball game itself was a masterpiece of deception. Played with a rubber ball heavy as a human head, the game mirrored the movement of celestial bodies. The twins let the lords win the first match, then demanded a rematch with their own rules, using real balls instead of magically enchanted ones. When the lords grew desperate and beheaded Hunahpu, Xbalanque didn't panic. He placed a squash on his brother's neck, restoring him to life, while the lords, distracted by the illusion, missed their chance to claim victory. But the twins' final act was their most audacious. Allowing themselves to be burned and ground into bone dust, they resurrected as wandering performers, dancing for the lords. One twin sacrificed the other, only to bring him back to life, a trick so convincing the death gods begged to experience it themselves. When the twins killed the lords, they left them dead, dismantling Xibalba's tyranny forever. Their reward, ascension to the sky, where Hunahpu became the sun and Xbalanque the moon, their journey etched into the stars as the Milky Way. The brilliance of this myth lies in its layers. The ball game wasn't just sport, it was a metaphor for the struggle between life and death, the rhythm of planting seasons and harvests. Modern Maya still play a descendant of this game, the sacred Pak-ta-Pak. Its court a microcosm of the universe, and the twins' victory wasn't just personal, it was a promise. By outsmarting death, they gave mortals a blueprint that even in the face of despair, cunning and unity could tilt the scales. When the morning sun climbs over the Yucatan today, it's not just light, it's the grin of Hunahpu, still laughing at the lords who thought they couldn't be beaten. The gates of the underworld grown open, their hinges rusted with the sighs of the dead, and standing before them is Inanna, Queen of Heaven, goddess of love and war, her golden crown gleaming like the dawn she rules. She has come to confront Ereshkigal, her sister and the dark sovereign of the underworld, a realm where light dares not linger. This isn't just a family feud, it's a cosmic reckoning, a battle that will redefine the boundaries between life and death, power and surrender. Inanna's descent begins with audacity. She adorns herself in 7 sacred mare, symbols of her divine authority. The crown of the steppe, the rod of judgment, the lapis lazuli necklace, the twin egg-shaped beads of fertility, the golden breastplate, the coal of vision, and the royal robe. Each piece radiates her celestial might, a calculated challenge to the underworld's gloom. But Ereshkigal, seated on her obsidian throne, knows the rules of her domain. As Inanna passes through each of the 7 gates, the gatekeeper strips away one of her mare until she stands naked and trembling at the throne of death itself. The message is clear: in the underworld, even gods are mortal. What happens next is a masterstroke of mythic symbolism. Ereshkigal fixes Inanna with the eye of death, turning her into a lifeless corpse hung on a hook like butchered meat. For 3 days and nights, the world above withers, crops fail, lovers grow cold, and battles cease, proof of Inanna's far-reaching influence. But this isn't the end. Through cunning negotiation by Inanna's vizier Ninchuba and the intervention of Inki, the god of wisdom, Inanna is resurrected. Yet resurrection comes at a cost. Someone must take her place in the underworld. Inanna, freshly revived, chooses her husband Dumuzi, who had failed to mourn her, but his sister Geshtanana volunteers to share his sentence, ensuring he spends only half the year in darkness. This myth isn't just about divine drama, it's a blueprint for the cycles of nature and governance. Inanna's descent mirrors the barley harvest, cut down, stored underground, then reborn with the spring rains. Dumuzi's alternating captivity explains the seasons of fertility and drought in Mesopotamia's brutal climate. But there's a political layer too. Inanna's ordeal legitimizes Ereshkigal's rule over death, while asserting that even the Queen of Heaven must submit to its laws. The sharing of Dumuzi's punishment reflects real-world legal compromises, where Sumerian courts often split judgments between claimants. The legacy of this battle echoes through time. The stripped goddess reappears in Ishtar's Babylonian descent, and the dying and rising god motif surfaces in Osiris, Adonis, even Christian resurrection narratives. Modern retellings, from poetry to fantasy novels, often frame Inanna's journey as feminist rebellion, a goddess reclaiming power from the patriarchy of death. But the original tale is subtler. Inanna doesn't conquer the underworld, she negotiates with it, learning that true sovereignty isn't just about taking, it's about balance. When she returns to the heavens, she's no longer just the goddess of love and war. She's the deity who stared into the abyss and emerged, not unscathed but wiser. The underworld's shadows cling to her robes, a reminder that even the brightest light is shaped by the darkness it pierces. Thunder splits the sky over the Yoruba lands, but this is no ordinary storm. It is Shango, the god of thunder, riding the tempest with his double-headed axe, reveling in the raw power of the elements. His laughter echoes in the crack of lightning, his fury in the quaking earth. Yet for all his might, Shango is not alone in his dominion over storms. Beside him stands Oya, goddess of winds and transformation, her swirling tornadoes a match for his thunderbolts, her presence as unpredictable as the sudden gales that reshape the savannah. Their relationship is one of passion and rivalry, a divine dance of fire and wind that embodies the delicate balance of forces in Yoruba cosmology. Shango's axe, the Osh, is more than a weapon, it's a symbol of divine justice. When disputes rage among mortals, his thunderous strikes are believed to expose lies, striking down the guilty with unerring precision. Yet his power is not mindless destruction. The Yoruba see him as a king who once ruled the ancient city of Oyo, a ruler so just that even in deification, his judgments remain swift and final. Temples dedicated to Shango often display his axe, its twin blades representing the dual nature of his wrath and mercy, one side to punish, the other to protect. Oya, however, is no mere consort. Her domain stretches beyond storms. She guards the marketplace, the crossroads of human endeavor, and even the gates of the afterlife. When she lifts her skirts, legend says she unleashes hurricanes capable of flattening forests. Her winds carry the voices of ancestors, whispering secrets to those who dare listen. Unlike Shango's direct and fiery justice, Oya's power is subtler. She reshapes reality itself, sweeping away the old to make room for the new. Their clashes are legendary. In one tale, Shango hurls a thunderbolt so mighty it ignites the plains, only for Oya to scatter the flames with a whirlwind, leaving neither victor nor vanquished. In another, she steals his sacred lightning, hiding it in her robes until he bargains for its return. These stories aren't just entertainment, they encode deep truths about the natural world. The Yoruba understood that storms are not singular forces, they are the interplay of opposing energies, thunder without wind as lifeless as wind without rain. Modern devotees still honor this balance. During festivals, dancers embodying Shango and Oya perform with fierce intensity, their movements mimicking the clash of elements. The lesson is clear: power unchecked is chaos, but power tempered by partnership creates harmony. Even today, when lightning splits the sky over Nigeria, those who remember the old stories know it's not just a storm. It's Shango and Oya still dancing. The frozen Arctic wind howls like a wounded beast as the kayak cuts through the black water, its lone occupant paddling frantically against the rising waves. This isn't just a storm, it's the wrath of Sedna, the Inuit sea goddess, her tangled hair whipping beneath the surface like strands of kelp in a riptide. But she wasn't always a deity of the depths. Once, she was a young woman betrayed by the two people who should have loved her most, her father and her husband. Her story isn't just a myth. It's a chilling explanation for the sudden tempests that swallow hunters whole and the sacred taboos that govern every Inuit meal shared with the ocean's bounty. It begins with Sedna's marriage, or rather, the cruel trick that led to it. A mysterious hunter, his face hidden by a raven's beak mask, promises her father untold riches if he can wed her. Sedna, wary but obedient, agrees only to discover too late that her groom is no man at all, but a fulmar in disguise, a storm bird masquerading as human. Their island home is a barren rock, her bed a nest of fish bones, and when she cries out for rescue, her father comes. But as they flee in his kayak, the enraged fulmars summon a blizzard so fierce the waves threaten to capsize them. In a moment of panic, her father does the unthinkable. He hurls Sedna overboard. When she clings to the boat's edge with frozen fingers, he takes his paddle and severs them joint by joint. Her fingertips, her hands, her arms all sink into the abyss, transforming into seals, walruses, and whales, the very creatures the Inuit depend on for survival. Sedna herself plunges to the ocean floor, where her broken body swells into something monstrous, her rage fusing with the tides. Now she rules Adlevan, the underwater realm where souls go after death, her hair eternally tangled by the currents. When storms erupt without warning, Inuit shamans must descend in trances to comb her hair, soothing her fury, bargaining for calm seas. But Sedna's influence extends beyond the weather. Every seal hunted, every whale harvested carries the weight of her story. Hunters whisper prayers before butchering their catch, careful not to offend her by mixing land and sea meat or wasting even a scrap of blubber. A child who drops a bone into the water might starve a village, for Sedna remembers every injury, every broken taboo. What makes this myth so haunting isn't just its violence, but its intimacy. Sedna's power stems from betrayal, her divinity forged by familial cruelty. The fulmar storm birds aren't mere villains, they're mirrors of Sedna's own transformation, creatures caught between sky and sea. Modern ecologists might frame her tale as an early warning against overharvesting, her wrath a metaphor for ecological imbalance. But for the Inuit, Sedna is uncompromisingly real. When the ice cracks unexpectedly or a hunt fails without cause, her name lingers in the air like salt spray, a reminder that the line between survival and sacrifice is as thin as a knife's edge. The ocean gives, but only if the goddess is respected, and her memory, like her severed fingers, lingers in every creature that sustains life in the harshest place on earth. The mountains of Anatolia shudder under the weight of the storm. Not just any storm, but the fury of Tarhunt, the Hittite god of thunder, his chariot wheels grinding lightning into the earth. Below him coils Ilianka, a serpent so vast his body could encircle a kingdom, his scales slick with the venom of droughts and failed harvests. This isn't merely a clash of gods and monsters, it's the battle on which the Hittite civilization stakes its survival. Every spring, when the rains falter and the fields lie barren, the people of Hattusa gather to reenact Tarhunt's victory, not just as myth, but as a ritual so potent it bends the very seasons to their will. The myth begins with defeat. In their first encounter, Ilanka overpowers Tarhunt, stealing the storm god's very heart and eyes, symbols of his divine authority. The land withers under the serpent's triumph, rivers drying to cracked mud, until Tarhunt's daughter Inanna devises a plan worthy of a queen. She throws a feast so lavish it lures Ilanka from his lair, intoxicating him with vats of honeyed wine until the serpent stumbles, bloated and sluggish. That's when Tarhunt strikes, his recovered lightning splitting the sky as he binds Ilanka with chains forged by the gods themselves. But the serpent's death isn't the end, it's renewal. His body, torn apart, becomes the first furrows of the fields, his blood the rain that nourishes the soil. The Hittites didn't just tell this story, they lived it. Each year, during the Purali festival, priests and warriors staged a dramatic reenactment. A chosen man, draped in the serpent's hide, would writhe through the streets as the crowd jeered, embodying chaos itself. The king, playing Tarhunt, would pursue him with a golden axe, striking the symbolic blow that echoed the god's victory. The climax, a shared feast where the people consumed bread shaped like serpents, digesting the myth literally, transforming Ilanka's flesh into their own strength. What makes this battle so compelling isn't just its violence, but its intimacy. Unlike other cosmic clashes where gods fight alone, Tarhunt's victory hinges on community, his daughter's cunning, the people's participation, even the serpent's own gluttony. The ritual mirrors the agricultural cycle. Drought must come before rain, hunger before harvest. Modern archaeologists have found tablets detailing the festival's songs, their verses pleading not just for victory but for balance. Ilanka isn't pure evil, he's the necessary adversary, the shadow that makes the light worth fighting for. Tarhunt's legacy lingers in unexpected places. The axe he wields resurfaces in later storm gods like Zeus and Thor, while Ilanka's coiled form slithers into Greek Typhon and even biblical Leviathan. But perhaps the deepest truth lies in the Hittite understanding of reciprocity. The festival wasn't about conquering nature, it was about bargaining with it, acknowledging that fertility demands sacrifice. When the first rains finally fell on Hattusa, they weren't just weather. They were the signature of a pact sealed in myth, a reminder that even the mightiest gods need mortal hands to uphold their victories. The earth trembles under the weight of primal forces as the rainbow serpent, known as Inanna to some, Wolanqua to others, uncoils from the Dreamtime, its iridescent scales refracting sunlight into rivers and carving valleys with its massive body. This isn't just a creator, it's a warrior locked in eternal conflict with other ancestral beings, each battle shaping the Australian continent into the land we know today. In the Kimberley region, the Ungod serpent clashes with the lightning-wielding Wandjina spirits, their skirmishes etching zigzag lightning scars into the red rock. Along the Arnhem Land coast, Bolong the rainbow serpent fights the greedy seagull sisters, their struggle forming the twisting tributaries of the Arafura swamp. These stories aren't mere folklore, they're living maps encoded with ecological wisdom and sacred lore. Take the epic battle between the rainbow serpent and the giant kangaroo at Uluru. As the serpent pursued the kangaroo across the desert, its thrashing tail gouged the earth, creating the Peterman Ranges, while the kangaroo's panicked leaps left indentations that became waterholes. When the serpent finally caught its prey near the Great Red Monolith, their final struggle cracked the rock itself, forming the caves and fissures that Aboriginal people still use for ceremonies today. But here's the twist, the serpent didn't win. The kangaroo's spirit merged with the land, becoming part of its power. This reflects a core Dreamtime principle: conflict doesn't end with destruction, but transformation. The Yolngu people of northern Australia tell of the rainbow serpent's duel with the fire-breathing Likanawa birds at Blue Mud Bay. As the birds scorched the land, the serpent summoned monsoonal rains, their collision creating the bay's unique brackish waters, a mix of salt and freshwater that sustains mangrove ecosystems. Sacred paintings at Murrah show the serpent's body arched in battle, its colors fading where the firebirds burnt its scales, explaining why some rainbow snakes in the region lack vibrant hues. These details aren't artistic flourishes, they're oral encyclopedias preserving knowledge about seasonal weather patterns and species behavior. Modern geologists have found startling parallels between these myths and actual events. The serpent's fights often occur along fault lines, suggesting ancient witnesses to earthquakes. The Ungaranjari story of the serpent thrashing underground to create the Murray River aligns with the region's prehistoric seismic activity. Even the recurring motif of serpents swallowing their foes, like the Waramaran Gunju serpent devouring misbehaving ancestors, may encode memories of megafauna extinctions or catastrophic floods. But these battles aren't trapped in the past. When Aboriginal elders today point to a twisted gum tree and say, "That's where the serpent struck the honey ant ancestor," they're not just recounting a tale. They're reinforcing kinship obligations. The honey ant's descendants still can't eat that tree's nectar. A rock formation shaped like a serpent's back isn't just a landmark. It's a legal document outlining territorial boundaries established during those primal wars. The fight between the serpent and the crocodile at Cahill's Crossing isn't merely a story. It's a warning about the deadly tides that still sweep the East Alligator River. What makes these myths extraordinary is their duality. The rainbow serpent is both destroyer and life-giver. Its battles scar the land, but those scars become wombat burrows, songlines, and aquifers. Unlike the Greek titans or Norse frost giants, these beings aren't vanquished. They're eternal, their conflicts ongoing in the rustle of wind through spinifex, the sudden flash floods in dry riverbeds. When a monsoon soaks the Titanomachy desert, elders nod knowingly. The serpent is wrestling again, and every new generation learns not just the stories, but how to read the battlefield beneath their feet. The mists of the frigid north swirl over Kalevala, the mythical land of the Finns, where the air itself hums with the magic of runes, ancient songs that can carve mountains and still storms. At the heart of this epic stands Vainamarainen, the eternal sage, his silver beard woven with centuries of wisdom, his voice capable of summoning spirits from the bedrock. But his greatest struggle isn't against a beast or a god, it's over the Sampo, a mystical artifact forged by the blacksmith Ilmarinen, its very existence a paradox. Part mill, part cauldron, part beacon, the Sampo grinds out endless salt, grain, and gold, yet its true power lies deeper. It's the embodiment of prosperity itself, a talisman of survival in Finland's harsh winters. The battles over the Sampo aren't just physical, they're symphonies of wit and will. When the witch queen Lauhai of Pohjola steals the Sampo for her shadowy northern realm, Vainamarainen doesn't charge in with swords. He builds a magical cantel, a harp strung with the hair of a drowned maiden, and lulls Lauhai's warriors into a slumber so deep their snores shake the auroras. Yet the Sampo's retrieval is only half the victory. On the voyage home, Lauhai conjures a tempest so fierce it shatters the sky into the fragments Finns now call the Northern Lights. The Sampo, torn from its moorings, splinters into the sea, its remnants washing ashore as veins of iron in the rocks, as schools of fish in the Baltic, as the fertile soil that feeds the birch forests. What makes this myth unforgettable isn't just its spectacle, but its subtext. The Sampo isn't a treasure to be owned, it's a force to be negotiated with. Its destruction doesn't spell ruin, it scatters its gifts, ensuring no single hand can hoard its bounty. The Finns saw their own struggles mirrored here, winters that starved, springs that rewarded patience, and the understanding that true wealth lies in balance, not domination. Even Vainamarainen, for all his power, can't control the Sampo's fate, only navigate its chaos. Modern Finland still whispers to the Sampo's legacy. The national epic, the Kalevala, compiled in the 19th century, became a rallying cry for Finnish identity under Russian rule, its runes a weapon against cultural erasure. Today, the Sampo's fragments live on, not in myth but in the silicon of Nokia's factories, the renewable energy of northern turbines, even the melodic melancholy of heavy metal bands like Amorphis, who weave the old runes into their lyrics. The lesson: some battles aren't fought for victory, but for renewal. When the Sampo shattered, it didn't disappear. It became the land itself. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the stones whisper secrets of the old world, the creator god Viracocha walked among giants, not the noble titans of other myths, but the pure unrunner, a race of towering beings carved from the living rock itself. These weren't just large creatures, they were forces of imbalance, their massive hands reshaping mountains without thought, their hunger devouring entire valleys. The Inca spoke of them with a shudder, for their reign was one of chaos, their very footsteps triggering landslides that buried villages. But Viracocha, the bearded stranger who emerged from Lake Titicaca's depths, saw more than just destruction in their wake. He saw a world out of harmony, a lesson that would echo through the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman and the flooded terraces of Pisac. The battle between Viracocha and the giants wasn't fought with lightning or swords. It was waged with the elements themselves. Legend says the Puron runner grew so arrogant they mocked the gods, hurling boulders at the heavens. In response, Viracocha summoned a great Unu Pachacuti, a flood that drowned the land, but not before transforming the giants into the very stone they once commanded. Their frozen forms still litter the Andes, the slumped ridges of the Sacred Valley, the jagged peaks of the Cordillera Blanca, even the eerie statues of Tiwanaku, their stony faces weathered by millennia of wind. The Incas pointed to these landmarks as proof, their oral histories intertwining with the geology of their homeland. But here's the twist: Viracocha didn't just obliterate the giants. He repurposed their essence. The colossal stones of Ollantaytambo, fitted together with impossible precision, were said to be remnants of their ruins, reshaped by divine will into fortresses and temples. The myth explains more than destruction. It mirrors the Incas' own engineering mastery, their ability to tame the landscape as Viracocha had, and the flood. It wasn't mere punishment. The Unu Pachacuti cleansed the world for the birth of humanity, a rebirth found in other Andean flood myths like the Aymara story of the Copac Cuna, where survivors repopulate the earth from the high caves of the Altiplano. What makes this cosmic battle unique is its intimacy. Unlike the thunderous clashes of Zeus or Thor, Viracocha's victory was quiet, almost architectural. Modern archaeologists note eerie parallels. The megalithic ruins of the Andes often sit atop older, cruder stonework, as if built atop the bones of a forgotten race. The Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon recorded Inca accounts of a pre-human era where giants tore through mountains as if they were clay. Even the flood narrative resonates globally, from Genesis to the Mesoamerican Popol Vuh, suggesting a shared memory of ancient cataclysms. Viracocha's legacy isn't just in the myths, it's in the living traditions of Quechua communities, where rituals still honor the Apus mountain spirits some say are the giants' descendants. When a farmer stacks stones to build an andane, a terraced field, they're echoing Viracocha's act of turning chaos into order. The battle wasn't just fought in the past, it's relived every time the Andes shudder with an earthquake, a reminder that even stone giants can wake. And perhaps that's the deepest lesson, not of conquest but of transformation. The gods don't just destroy, they rebuild. The Mediterranean waves crash violently against the shores of Ugarit, each swell a reminder of Yam's dominion. The Canaanite sea god whose name means river, but whose power stretches to the darkest abysses. This isn't just water, it's chaos given form, a primordial force that even the gods fear. Yet standing against him, lightning crackling in his fists, is Baal-Hadad, the storm god whose voice shakes the heavens. Their clash isn't merely a fight for supremacy, it's the defining moment in Levantine cosmology where order wrestles chaos for the right to rule. The Ugaritic texts etched onto clay tablets over 3,000 years ago preserve this battle in vivid detail, not as folklore but as sacred drama, a ritual blueprint for how civilization itself was forged from the deep. Bal's journey to kingship begins with an insult. Yam, emboldened by his ally El, the aging high god, demands Bal's submission. His messengers arrive with the arrogance of tidal waves. "Bow down, storm rider, become my slave." To the Canaanites, this was more than dialogue. It was the existential threat of the sea swallowing the land, of storms drowning crops, of saltwater poisoning wells. Bal's refusal is volcanic. With Cathar Wakassis, the divine craftsman, he forges two clubs with names like battle cries, Expeller and All Driver, each one singing with the promise of victory. The battle itself is a masterpiece of symbolic violence. Yam coils around Bal like a tsunami, his serpentine body crushing the storm god's ribs, but Bal, fueled by the fury of the tempest, strikes Yam between the eyes. The sea god collapses, his waters receding like a broken tide, but Bal doesn't stop there. He shatters Yam's spine, dismembers his limbs, and declares himself king atop Mount Zaphon, his throne now the axis of the cosmos. Yet this isn't genocide. Yam isn't annihilated. He's subdued, his chaos tamed into the rhythms of tides and seasons, his power redirected rather than destroyed. What makes this myth extraordinary isn't just its violence, but its political subtext. The tablets frame Bal's victory as a transfer of power from the old god El and his pantheon to a younger, more dynamic order. The storm god's triumph mirrors the rise of Bronze Age city-states along the Levant, their kingship rituals echoing Bal's coronation. When Phoenician sailors later invoked Bal to calm storms, or when farmers offered libations for rain, they weren't just praying, they were reenacting this cosmic turning point. Modern echoes of this battle ripple through Abrahamic traditions. Yam's serpentine form slithers into the Bible as Leviathan, the sea monster subdued by Yahweh. Bal's lightning becomes the weapon of prophets like Elijah, who confronts the priests of Bal on Mount Carmel, a twist where the storm god's own iconography is repurposed for monotheism. Even the motif of a god conquering chaos to establish kingship resurfaces in Psalms, where Yahweh stills the roaring seas. The Canaanites may have vanished, but their cosmic duel lives on, rewritten but never erased. Yet the deepest lesson lies in Yam's survival. Bal doesn't eliminate the sea, he domesticates it. The Canaanites, master sailors and traders, understood that chaos isn't evil, it's essential. Without Yam's waters, there are no trade routes, no fish, no life. Their myth rejects absolute victory in favor of balance, a lesson carved into every wave that ever kissed a Phoenician hull. When the storm breaks and the skies clear, it's not just weather. It's the aftermath of a divine bargain, signed in lightning and sealed with salt. The sun withers under the shadow of 1,000 serpents as Zohak strides through Persia, his shoulders writhing with the twin vipers that sprouted from his flesh after a cursed kiss from Ahriman himself. For 1,000 years, this serpent king has ruled, his tyranny so absolute that every blacksmith's forge in the kingdom groans under the weight of his cruelty. Each day, 2 youths slaughtered to feed the ravenous snakes that coil around his neck. This isn't just oppression, it's a cosmic perversion, the lie made flesh, where a once noble prince became the vessel for Angra Mainyu's corruption. Yet in the mountains of Damavand, where the air thins and the rocks remember older songs, a rebellion stirs. A blacksmith named Kave, his leather apron stained with the soot of a lifetime of labor, raises his hammer not to forge metal but destiny. His son is next in line for Zohak's butcher block, and this time the furnace of his grief will temper something far sharper than steel, a revolution. Kave's rebellion begins with a banner, not silk or gold, but a simple leather apron lashed to a spear, a symbol so raw it electrifies the oppressed. As he marches toward the palace, farmers and shepherds flock to his side, their scythes and staves glinting in the sun. Yet this uprising needs more than mortal fury, it needs a king. Hidden in the wilds, groomed by the whispers of the divine, waits Jamshid's rightful heir, Feridun, a youth raised by a celestial cow whose milk carried the wisdom of the ancients. When Cave kneels before him, pressing the apron banner into his hands, the moment transcends politics. This is the passing of the Far, the divine glory that marks a true ruler, shifting from the corrupted Zahak to the chosen savior. The final confrontation crackles with mythic symbolism. Feridun doesn't wield a sword but a mace shaped like an ox's head, a direct rebuke to Zahak's serpentine corruption, for the cow is sacred in Zoroastrian tradition, a creature of nurturing light. When the blow falls, it doesn't kill the Serpent King outright. Zahak is bound with the chains of Varuna, the same that once restrained Ahriman, and dragged to Mount Damavand. There he's imprisoned in a cavern, his venomous breath said to cause the mountain's sulphurous stench to this day. But here's the twist: Zahak isn't destroyed. Like Angramaniu himself, he's contained, a reminder that evil is never fully eradicated, only kept at bay through vigilance. What gives this myth its enduring power isn't just the heroics, but its layers of meaning. The blacksmith's apron becomes the flag of Iran, a testament to the common people's role in toppling tyranny. Feridun's ox-headed mace evolves into the gurs of later Persian warriors, a weapon imbued with righteous purpose. Even Zahak's snakes carry dual symbolism. Some scholars see them as metaphors for the twin burdens of oppressive taxation and religious heresy that plagued historical despots. Modern Iranians still celebrate Mayrigan, the festival marking Feridun's victory, with pomegranates and poetry, their crimson seeds echoing the blood spilled for freedom. But the deepest lesson lies in Cave's defiance. Unlike other myths where gods or nobles lead rebellions, here it's a blacksmith, a laborer, who sparks the flame. The Shahnameh, written by Ferdowsi to preserve Persian identity under Arab rule, insists that liberation begins not with crowns but with the collective roar of the unheard. When the wind howls through Damavand's peaks, locals say it's Zahak struggling against his chains. But the wind also carries another sound, the ringing of Cave's hammer, still forging courage in the hearts of those who refuse to kneel. The Pacific waves churn crimson as Ku, the Hawaiian god of war, plunges his spear into the belly of a long shark, its serrated teeth gnashing just inches from his throat. This isn't just a skirmish, it's a sacred covenant, a battle fought not for conquest but for balance. To the fishermen of ancient Hawaii, Ku's underwater wars were as vital as the tides themselves, a divine intervention ensuring the ocean's bounty wasn't stripped bare by the relentless jaws of the Mono Nui, the great sharks. Unlike the thunderous clashes of Zeus or Thor, Ku's battles were silent, waged in the cerulean depths where human eyes couldn't follow, yet their ripple effects fed entire villages. The long sharks weren't mere predators, they were manifestations of oceanic excess. Legends speak of their schools darkening the water like storm clouds, their hunger so insatiate they'd leave reefs barren and nets empty. When prayers to the gentle fish god Kanaloa went unanswered, the people turned to Ku, not the bloodthirsty war deity of other pantheons, but a disciplined protector. Armed with a spear carved from ironwood and tipped with stingray spine, he'd dive where no mortal dared, his lungs defying physics as he battled for hours in the crushing deep. The shark's size was their weakness. Ku danced between their sluggish strikes, driving his weapon into gills and eyes, never killing more than necessary. His victory wasn't measured in corpses, but in the return of the Akul fish to Hononau Bay, the reappearance of octopus in tidal pools. Yet Ku's battles carried a paradox. The sharks he fought were also sacred, kin to the Omakua family guardian spirits. Hawaiian lore warns of killing a shark unnecessarily, lest its spirit return as a vengeful Nakua. This duality forced a delicate dance. Ku's violence wasn't eradication, but negotiation. Fishermen whispered of glimpsing him after a battle, kneeling on the ocean floor to chant over the slain sharks, his war mask replaced by a visage of grief. The lesson was clear: courage without reverence is empty. Modern Hawaii still honors this balance. Traditional hula dances reenact Ku's battles with undulating hips mimicking shark movements, while chants recall his spear's precision. Even the annual Makahiki festival, celebrating peace, includes rituals thanking sharks for their sacrifices. Marine biologists note an eerie parallel. Healthy shark populations today correlate with thriving reefs, echoing the old belief that Ku's wars maintained harmony. When a fisherman cuts the first catch of the season loose as an offering, they're not just following tradition. They're stepping into Ku's current where respect and resistance flow as one. Deep beneath the rolling hills of Tuscany, where the Etruscan civilization once thrived, whispers linger of a battle that shook the very pillars of the world. Long before Rome claimed dominion over Italy, the prophet Tarches, his face hidden behind a bronze mask, his robes embroidered with celestial patterns, stood against a race of giants who sought to crush the fledgling cities of the Etruscans underfoot. These weren't mere oversized brutes, they were forces of primal chaos, their origins lost to time, their bodies said to be hewn from the very mountains they trampled. The clash between Tarches and these colossi wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a contest of divine will versus raw, untamed power, a struggle that would echo through the rituals of Roman augurs and the foundation myths of the eternal city itself. The giants, known as the Gigantes in Etruscan lore, weren't mindless destroyers. They were cunning, their strategies as vast as their frames. Some legends describe them hurling boulders carved with curses, each stone carrying the weight of their malice. Others speak of their ability to summon storms, their thunderous voices shaking the earth until the temples of Velsna trembled on their foundations. But Tarches, the seer who could read the future in the flight of birds and the livers of sacrificed beasts, wasn't armed with swords or spears. His weapons were knowledge and prophecy. With a single glance, he could unravel the giants' plans, turning their own strength against them. In one tale, he lured them into a labyrinth of sacred trenches, their movements dictated by the stars above, trapping them in a snare of celestial geometry. Yet the most fascinating twist in this myth isn't Tarches' victory, it's how the Etruscans memorialized it. The Liber Linteus, a rare surviving Etruscan text, hints at annual rites where priests reenacted the battle, wearing masks to channel the prophet's wisdom. These rituals weren't just commemorations, they were acts of cosmic maintenance, ensuring the giants' defiance would never resurge. The Romans, always astute borrowers of Etruscan traditions, adapted these rites into their own foundation myths. The story of Romulus and Remus, suckled by the she-wolf, carries faint echoes of Tarches' struggle, a small, divinely guided order triumphing over chaotic, overwhelming forces. Even the Roman practice of augury, reading omens in bird flights, owes a debt to the Etruscan seers' methods. What makes this myth so compelling is its ambiguity. Unlike the Greek Gigantomachy, where Olympians crushed giants underfoot, the Etruscan version blurs the line between victor and vanquished. Some carvings depict Tarches not as a conqueror, but as a mediator, striking bargains with the giants to share the land. This duality reflects the Etruscan worldview, a civilization deeply attuned to balance, where even chaos had a role to play. Modern excavations near Volterra have uncovered giant-like skeletal remains, likely ancient mammoth bones misinterpreted by later cultures, fueling speculation that the myth may have roots in real encounters with the unfamiliar. The legacy of Tarches and the giants lingers in unexpected places. Dante's Inferno places giants in the lowest rings of hell, their futile rebellion mirroring the Etruscan narrative. Even Renaissance art, with its towering figures like Michelangelo's David, taps into this ancient tension between human intellect and brute force. But perhaps the most poignant reminder is in the Tuscan landscape itself. The jagged Apuan Alps, said by locals to be the petrified corpses of the giants, their defiance frozen in stone. When the mist rolls in over those peaks, it's easy to imagine Tarches still walking among them, his whispers keeping their restless spirits at bay. The high peaks of Mount Tibik shudder as a tempest unlike any other rages across the Korean peninsula. Not a natural storm, but the fury of Yondung Halmi, the wind grandmother, her gales sharp enough to flay the bark from ancient pines. Opposing her stands Dangun, the mythic first king of Korea, his divine heritage blazing in his veins. Born of Hwanung, the son of the celestial ruler Hwanin, and a bear transformed into a woman through sacred discipline, Dangun isn't just a ruler, he's a bridge between gods and mortals, his very existence a defiance of boundaries. His battle with Yondung-Halmi isn't merely about conquest, it's a trial by wind, a test of whether a demigod can tame the chaos of the natural world to forge a kingdom worthy of the heavens. The conflict begins with a provocation. Yondung-Halmi, offended by Dangun's claim to the land, sends relentless typhoons to rip apart the fledgling settlements of Gojoseon, Korea's first kingdom. Homes are uprooted, rice paddies flooded, and the sacred altar to Hwanung lies in ruins. But Dangun doesn't respond with brute force. Instead, he climbs to the summit of Mount Tibik, where the wind's voice is loudest, and begins a ritual so ancient even the rocks seem to lean closer to listen. With a bronze dagger and a mirror polished to reflect the sky, he performs the gut, a shamanic ceremony invoking his celestial grandfather's wisdom. The gamble is audacious. Rather than fighting the wind, he seeks to reason with it. What unfolds is a battle of wills steeped in Korean cosmology. Yondung-Halmi's winds howl with the voices of the restless dead, but Dangun counters with songs passed down from Hwanin, each syllable weighted with cosmic order. The struggle isn't physical but spiritual, a duel of resonance. When the wind grandmother twists her gales into a maelstrom, Dangun mirrors her with a dance, his footsteps tracing the constellations, his sleeves cutting arcs like the wings of cranes. Slowly, the tempest stills, not out of defeat but recognition. In a pivotal twist, Yondung-Halmi doesn't surrender, she negotiates. The wind, she reveals, isn't an enemy but a teacher. Without its harshness, the barley would grow weak, the pines would never learn resilience. The resolution reshapes Korean identity. Dangun decrees an annual rite, the Yongo, where shamans drum and dance to honor the wind's duality, its capacity to destroy and to purify. To this day, villages in Gangwon province tie ropes weighted with stones around trees before typhoons, a folk tradition echoing Dangun's pact. Respect the wind's power and it will spare what matters most. The myth's brilliance lies in its refusal to frame sovereignty as domination. Unlike Zeus subduing Typhon or Indra slaying Vritra, Dangun's victory isn't absolute. It's a covenant, acknowledging that true kingship means balancing human ambition with the rhythms of the unseen world. Modern Korea still whispers to this legacy. The foundation myth of Dangun isn't just a tale of origins, it's a blueprint for harmony. When K-pop idols bow deeply to their fans or corporations adjust plans after consulting geomancers, they're unconsciously channeling Dangun's lesson. That power, divine or mortal, thrives not in control but in reciprocity. The wind never truly stopped blowing on Mount Tibik. It just learned to sing alongside the drums of kings. The earth beneath Britain groans with unseen conflict, where rolling green hills and jagged cliffs hide a war older than human memory. According to the Welsh triads, long before Camelot's towers pierced the sky, the legendary wizard Merlin faced a primordial struggle, not against knights or sorcerers, but against two cosmic dragons buried deep beneath the fortress of Dina's Imrais. The legend goes that King Vortigern, attempting to build a stronghold, found his foundations mysteriously collapsing each night. His seers revealed the cause. Beneath the mountain, a red dragon and a white dragon writhed in endless combat, their fury shaking the land itself. Enter Merlin, the boy prophet, who didn't just interpret the omen but orchestrated its resolution. This wasn't a simple duel of magical beasts. These dragons embodied the very essence of Britain's geological and political destiny. The red dragon symbolized the native Britons, its scales the color of fire and blood. The white dragon represented the invading Saxons, its pale hide like ice encroaching on fertile soil. Their battle wasn't confined to some cavern. It mirrored the clashing of tectonic plates, the grinding of continents that shaped the island's mountains and valleys. When Merlin revealed that the red dragon would eventually triumph, he wasn't merely predicting a military victory. He was decoding the land's own slow, subterranean will, where the bedrock itself favored the people rooted in it. Yet the myth's brilliance lies in its ambiguity. The dragons weren't slain, they were released, their energies dispersing into the land like seismic waves. The red dragon's victory didn't erase the white dragon's influence. Saxon culture would forever weave into Britain's fabric, but it affirmed an older power sleeping beneath the surface. Modern geologists note a striking parallel. The very bedrock of Wales, where Dinas Imrai stands, is a collision zone of ancient volcanic rock and younger sedimentary layers, a literal manifestation of dragon-like forces locked in struggle. Merlin's role transcends wizardry here. He's a liminal figure straddling the seen and unseen worlds, his prophecy less about fate than negotiation with the Earth's raw power. Later Arthurian tales would obscure this cosmic dimension, reducing Merlin to a court magician. But the older Welsh texts remember him as Myrddin Wyllt, the wildman of the woods, whose madness was a form of geologic clarity, a man who heard the dragon's whispers in every earthquake and landslide. The legacy of this battle lingers in Britain's bones. The red dragon still adorns the Welsh flag, a living emblem of that subterranean triumph. Folklore warns that disturbing certain hills or caves might wake the dragon, a euphemism for triggering landslides or eruptions. Even T.H. White in The Once and Future King reimagined Merlin aging backward, a nod to the myth's timeless, cyclical nature where dragons never truly die. They merely slumber, waiting for the next prophet to decipher their rumblings. The night sky over the pre-colonial Philippines wasn't just a canvas of stars, it was a battleground. When the moon vanished without warning, swallowed whole by darkness, the people didn't just see an eclipse. They witnessed the Baccanawa, a colossal sea serpent with jaws wide enough to devour celestial bodies, locked in a deadly dance with lunar deities who refused to surrender their light. This wasn't mere folklore, it was an ancient civilization's sophisticated attempt to explain the cosmos, wrapped in a myth as visceral as the tides the Baccanawa commanded. Imagine the scene, fishermen hauling in their nets by the violet glow of a full moon when suddenly shadow creeps across its face. The air thrums with panic as villagers grab pots and pans, clanging them together, shouting curses at the sky. Why, they believed the Baccanawa, drawn by the moon's radiance, had coiled around it like a python suffocating prey. But the moon wasn't defenseless. In some versions, the lunar god Bulan fought back with beams of piercing light, while others spoke of 7 moon-eating birds called the Lawan, diving at the serpent's eyes to drive it into retreat. The people's clamor wasn't superstition, it was warfare by proxy, their noise joining the celestial struggle to tip the scales. The Baccanawa's origins are as murky as the deep trenches it supposedly inhabited. Some oral traditions describe it as a transformed dragon, once a beautiful maiden who swallowed a moonstone and became monstrous. Others claim it was born from the primordial chaos of the sea, its very existence a challenge to cosmic order. What's striking is how regional variations reflect local ecologies. In coastal communities, the Baccanawa's body undulates like a tsunami, its scales crusted with coral. Inland versions paint it more like a giant python, its hunger for the moon mirroring the agricultural dread of failed crops during untimely eclipses. But here's the twist. The Baccanawa wasn't purely a villain. Its attacks followed a pattern ancient astronomers decoded. The serpent struck most often during Timu, the typhoon season, linking its rampages to real meteorological chaos. Pre-colonial Babylon priestesses tracked these cycles, using the myth to predict eclipses long before telescopes existed. The Baccanawa's rhythm became a celestial calendar. Avoid voyages when the moon waned too quickly, plant crops after its victory, for the serpent's retreat ensured fertility. This duality, destroyer and timekeeper, reveals a profound truth. The myth wasn't about fear, it was about agency. By dramatizing the eclipse, the ancients transformed a passive celestial event into a story where human actions mattered. Modern echoes of this battle persist. During the 2019 total lunar eclipse, Filipinos trended #Save the Moon on social media, a playful nod to their ancestors' pots and pans ritual. Astronomers at the Philippine Space Agency even named a satellite program after the Baccanawa, reclaiming the serpent as a symbol of cosmic curiosity rather than dread. Meanwhile, tattoos of the creature surge in popularity, inked in swirling tribal patterns as if to honor the chaos that once shaped time itself. The Baccanawa's legacy slithers beyond folklore. It's a testament to how pre-colonial societies weaponized narrative to tame the incomprehensible. The serpent didn't just explain eclipses, it made the heavens feel reachable, a place where clanging cookware and shouted prayers could tilt the balance of the cosmos. When the next shadow grips the moon, look closely. You might just glimpse the old serpent's jaws, locked in an eternal battle where darkness doesn't conquer, it negotiates. The sky above Jotunheim cracks like an ice sheet under a blacksmith's hammer as Thor's chariot barrels through the storm, his goats Tangrisnir and Tangjosta gnashing their teeth with lightning. Below him, the frost giants, the Jotnar, loom like glaciers given life, their breath a blizzard, their hearts as cold as the void between stars. But these aren't mindless monsters. In Norse myth, the Jotnar are primordial forces, embodiments of winter's hunger, earthquakes rumble, and the untamed wilds that even gods fear. Thor's endless battles with them aren't just brawls, they're the fulcrum of a cosmic balance, where every swing of Mjolnir doesn't just crush a giant's skull, it keeps the universe itself from freezing over. Take the story of Hrungnir, the mightiest of the Jotnar, whose heart and head were carved from stone. When he drunkenly boasts in Asgard's halls that he'll crush the gods and drown Valhalla in the sea, Thor doesn't just react, he turns the giant's arrogance against him. Their duel isn't fought on some distant battlefield, but on the borderlands between realms, a liminal space where order and chaos clash. Hrungnir wields a whetstone as a weapon, a nod to the giant's role as sharpeners of both blades and fate. Yet when Thor shatters the giant with Mjolnir, the victory isn't clean. A fragment of that whetstone lodges in Thor's skull, a permanent reminder that even triumphs come with scars. This tension defines Thor's relationship with the Jotnar. Unlike Odin, who outthinks his foes, or Tyr, who outbraves them, Thor outlasts. His battles are cyclical, like the seasons he guards. When he fishing trips for the world serpent Jörmungandr, a Jotun in all but name, he doesn't kill it, he hooks it, proving his strength before the serpent slinks back into the deep. The message is clear. Ragnarök isn't just an end, but a reckoning deferred. Even Thor's famous appetite, downing entire casks of mead in one gulp, mirrors this theme. He consumes chaos, digesting it into order, one thunderclap at a time. Yet the Jotnar aren't mere villains. Some, like Skadi, the huntress goddess of winter, marry into the Aesir, blending frost and fire into something new. Others, like the wise giant Mimir, trade knowledge with Odin, their heads severed but still whispering secrets. This nuance reveals the Jotnar's true role. They're the necessary counterweight to the god's brilliance. Without them, Yggdrasil's roots would wither, its branches grow stagnant. Thor's hammer, forged by a Jotun smith, is itself a paradox, a weapon made by the enemy that saves the day. Modern retellings often flatten this dynamic, painting the Jotnar as generic, bad guys. But the original myths whisper a subtler truth. When Thor grips Mjolnir, he isn't just fighting giants. He's wrestling with the untamed parts of himself, the rage that could crack the sky, the hunger that could drain oceans. His victories aren't about eradication, but equilibrium. So when thunder rumbles in the distance, it's not just a storm. It's the sound of the world's oldest negotiation, where every lightning strike is a temporary truce between fire and ice. The winds of Tibet howl across the high plateaus, carrying not just snow but whispers of a battle older than monasteries, a war waged by Gesar, the warrior king sent by the gods, against the demon lords who choked the land with black magic and suffering. Unlike the thunderous clashes of Greek or Norse myths, Gesar's fights unfold like a Tibetan Thangka painting, intricate, layered, and pulsing with spiritual meaning. His enemies aren't just monsters, they're manifestations of greed, ignorance, and hatred, their shapes shifting from multi-armed giants to seductive sorcerers, each one a test of Gesar's enlightenment as much as his sword arm. Gesar's origin itself is a cosmic intervention. Born as the celestial son of the gods, he descends to Earth in a time when demonic forces led by the shape-shifting Lutsen and the soul-drinking Dude have twisted the natural order. Rivers run backward, crops wither under cursed skies, and children are born with their souls already half devoured. But Gesar isn't just a fighter, he's a trickster saint. In one tale, he defeats the demon king Zalkar not through brute force, but by challenging him to a singing contest. His melodies, woven with Buddhist mantras and Bonpo invocations, unravel the demon's ego until he collapses like an emptied sack. Yet the brilliance of these myths lies in their duality. Gesar's victories are never final. The demoness Majul Pomra, for instance, isn't slain but converted, her ferocity transformed into a protective force for sacred mountain passes. This mirrors Tibetan Buddhism's core tenet. Even the darkest forces can be redirected toward enlightenment. The epic's battles often end with Gesar binding demons under oath, swearing them to guard temples or serve as Dharma protectors. A stark contrast to Western myths where evil is simply annihilated. The weapons Gesar wields are as symbolic as his foes. His spear, forged from the spine of a sky dragon, represents wisdom-piercing illusion. His horse, Kyongo Kaka, isn't just a steed but a manifestation of wind horse, the Tibetan concept of spiritual momentum. Even his armor, inscribed with seed syllables, turns arrows into teachings, their impact awakening compassion in those who strike him. Modern Tibetans still chant passages from the Gesar epic, the longest oral poem in the world, believing its recitation can purify environments haunted by negative energies. In monasteries, masked dancers reenact his battles during Losar festivals, their swirling robes embodying the dance of wisdom and delusion. Scholars note how Gesar's struggles mirror historical tensions between Buddhism and the older Bon tradition, his syncretic nature making him a bridge between worlds. What makes Gesar timeless isn't his might, but his method. Where Hercules clubbed his way through labors, Gesar outthinks, outsings, and outcompasses his foes. His war isn't against demons, but for demons a fight to reclaim their latent Buddha nature. When a storm clears over the Himalayas, revealing a peak untouched by shadow, locals don't just see weather. They see Gesar's handiwork, another skirmish won in the endless campaign to turn poison into medicine. From the thunderous clashes of Mesopotamia's Marduk and Tiamat to the silent, subterranean wars of Merlin's dragons, one truth echoes across every culture: the battle between order and chaos isn't just myth, it's the heartbeat of human imagination. These stories, carved into clay tablets, woven into epic poems, or whispered around campfires, all grapple with the same primal question: how do we survive in a universe that seems equally bent on creating and devouring us? Whether it's the Norse gods facing Ragnarök with grim resolve or the rainbow serpent shaping Australia's landscape through conflict, these myths reveal our ancestors' attempts to name the unnameable, to fight back the darkness with stories as their only weapons. Yet what's astonishing isn't just the similarities, it's the nuances. The Aztecs saw chaos as a cyclical force necessary for renewal. The Hindu Devas and Asuras needed each other to maintain balance. Even the terrifying Bacanawa of Filipino myth, with its hunger for the moon, became a timekeeper, its attacks woven into the rhythm of seasons. These cultures didn't just fear chaos, they negotiated with it, turning enemies into uneasy allies. That tension lives on today, not just in our blockbusters and fantasy novels, but in how we frame our own struggles against climate change, pandemics, even political upheaval. We're still telling versions of these battles, still casting ourselves as the heroes who might, against all odds, tilt the scales toward light. The legacy of these cosmic wars lingers in the most unexpected places. The next time you see a superhero's hammer strike a villain, remember Thor's Mjolnir. When a sci-fi dystopia warns of ecological collapse, hear the whispers of Zoroastrianism's Frashokriti, where fire purifies the world for rebirth. Even our languages bear scars from these ancient fights: chaos from the Greek abyss, typhoon from the Chinese dragon god Tai Feng. These myths didn't vanish, they evolved, hiding in plain sight, reminding us that every generation must reckon with its own monsters. So now we pass the torch to you. Which of these cosmic battles resonates most? Is it Suzanu's cunning defeat of Orochi, or Keve's uprising against the Serpent King Zahak? Maybe you're drawn to the quiet defiance of Sedna, or the explosive rebirth of the phoenix in Egyptian lore. The comments are your arena. Share your favorite clash and let's keep these stories alive. Because the war between order and chaos isn't confined to the past. It's happening now in every choice we make, every shadow we face. And just like the gods, we're all writing our own myths, one thunderbolt, one whispered spell, one act of courage at a time.